feel like everyone has talked about how gear doesn't matter so much that everyone kind of knows now. But what not that many people have talked about is what happens next, when you do make the best thing you can make with the stuff that you have right now, and then nothing happens. Nobody sees your photos or your short film, or worse, old mate Barry sees them on Facebook and leaves some snarky comment about how your settings were wrong or your horizon was crooked. That's what this video is about. So let's talk about what's going on, why it happens, and what we can do to fix it, and then after that, I'll give you my strategy for finding fulfillment in photography. There's a lot of gatekeeping in the photography world. There's a lot of crabs in a bucket style competition, and I think a lot of us are a bit like this. I've actually had photographers stop me in public before to tell me I'm doing something wrong, and I'm sure that if you share your work online, you've had some old dude in the comments trying to critique your photos. Now, the funny thing about that is that obviously there's not one correct way to do art. In fact, there's hardly even one correct way to do maths. Photography is about creating, but it feels like a lot of us have been propagandized into thinking we need more and better stuff to make art with, treating photography like it's this other form of tech consumerism, when it's supposed to be the literal opposite of consumerism. Creating-ism.
Isms, in my opinion, are not good. A person should not believe in an ism. He should believe in himself.
So why does this happen? Well, there's a few reasons, but the main ones are time, money, and status. Remember old mate Barry, that uncle who shows up to weddings with his Nikon D5 and calls it a real camera? If you think about it, he probably does know more about the technical side of photography. He had to learn to calculate bounce flash with no light meter in his head and multi-grade printing in the darkroom, and while that is really cool and hard to learn, the reality is, for almost everybody nowadays, that's obsolete. And it's easy to see how old mate Barry might get a little bit upset that there are 15-year-olds with an iPhone getting more recognition than he ever did. Because the 15-year-old isn't thinking about Ansel Adams' zone system, he's just thinking about how to make something cool. Because the reality is, the iPhone already makes the photos technically perfect, or at least good enough. But the fun twist here is that we all have a little bit of old mate Barry inside of us. What I mean is, there's a little part of you that also feels like you want to be seen differently to everyone else posting photos on Instagram of their breakfasts and their friends. I think so many photographers have this really strong sense of anxiety around being seen as a real photographer. What does that even mean? Maybe it means that you're a professional.
Anyone can do this. Anyone. Takes nothing. You point, focus, click. And most important, fuck up.
I'm just gonna say it. Professional photography is a luxury career, and I'm tired of pretending that it isn't. The reality is, there are way more incredible photographers in the world than there is demand for them and their photos. Yes, professional photographers are excellent at what they do, but that job is much more about running a business and being well connected than it is about being a great artist. And I think that that anxiety about being seen as a real photographer comes from a place of wanting to be seen as an artist and not an entrepreneur. Plus, being a professional isn't required or even a good thing for most of us. Everyone cooks, and you can be really into cooking and a great chef and known by all of your friends as a great chef without ever stepping foot into a restaurant kitchen. Even more than that, I think for most of us, it's much more satisfying to cook a meal for our friends or family, that's you, rather than some big table at a restaurant that we'll never actually see. That's the algorithm. So if we do want to be seen as artists, why don't we act like them? If you think about other art forms, like painting, for example, they approach their art very differently. Painters share their work in art galleries, or at least at gallery-style shows, and we share our work on Instagram, which is of course a great way to reach people, but I think if you want to show your photos as art and not content, and you do want to be seen differently to all of the other Instagram accounts, maybe it's time to share in a different way. Maybe make a zine. Here's one of my old ones. They're cheap, you can hand them out, and they feel so much more real than an Instagram carousel, even if the source material is basically the same. Maybe chat to your local coffee shop and see if you can stick some prints up and do a little talk. Hell, have an exhibition at the beach if you have to. As long as you're making the act of looking at your photos an experience, then it's going to feel fundamentally different to the rest of the zillion photos a day that get posted on the internet. Trust me on this one. You can get 10,000 likes on Instagram and it won't change your life at all. Not even 1%. I know, I've done it loads of times. Nothing changes. But if you have a little event at a cafe and 20 of your friends show up to look at your photos and talk about them, that changes your life like lots of percents. But aside from all of that, I think it's really important to sit down and think hard about why you feel like you need to be seen as a real photographer. Because if you're absolutely honest with yourself, it's probably because you don't feel like one yet. What does that tell us? Maybe instead of worrying about what other people think, there's some work to be done. Ignore the noise, make what makes you happy, experiment with new ideas, and just create art for art's sake. Because trust me, again from experience, the only thing that will make you feel like a real photographer is not a paycheck and it's not a follow account, it's looking at some photos that you took and being really proud of them. When you pivot your mindset around to getting validation from yourself instead of the like button or bank account, you'll suddenly find yourself feeling a lot better about things. You'll be more creative, more experimental, and you'll take better and more interesting photos. Honestly, don't turn photography into a situation where your passion is another area of your life that you're constantly being graded and categorized and compared to everyone else, because that's not going to make the world a better place. One fun way that I've been trying to make the world a better place, even just like a little tiny bit, is that every time I photograph a place of business, like a shop or a restaurant or anything like that, I go and I upload a photo to Google Maps. It sounds kind of silly, and obviously I'm not going to be winning any Pulitzer Prizes for it, but it's quite fun. I get a lot of satisfaction knowing that the next time somebody gets directions to that place, they might see a nice photo of it instead of like that awkwardly cropped image of Street View. I've also been making a real effort to try to share my photography with the people who are most important to me. I get so much more satisfaction from sending a shoebox full of prints to a friend or a family member than anyone has ever got from a viral Instagram post. Most importantly, just don't let anybody tell you that you're doing it wrong. Your horizon can be crooked if you want it to be. If you think it looks better with the highlights blown out, blow them out. And believe it or not, your photos don't even need to be in focus. If you don't believe me on that last one, watch this video where I'll explain why. Stay hydrated and create art.